kept my camera off. Just another silent observer in the quarterly board meeting. Marcus, my older brother, stood at the head of the mahogany conference table in his tailored Tom Ford suit, gesturing confidently as he presented his vision for expanding the family's manufacturing company into new markets. He had no idea I was on the call. He never did. "We need bold leadership," Marcus continued, his voice carrying that particular tone he'd perfected since childhood. The one that said he was the chosen one, the capable one, the one who actually mattered. Not the kind of person who can't even balance a checkbook. I took a sip of my coffee. Ethiopian single origin from a small roaster in Seattle. $47 per pound. I bought it by the case. Growing up, Marcus was everything. I was nothing. When Marcus was 12 and I was 9, Dad brought home report cards from our private school. Marcus had straight A's. I had A's and 1 B+ in math. "This is what excellence looks like," Dad said, holding up Marcus's report card at dinner. He put mine face down on the table. "Tegan, you need to work harder. Your brother never disappoints us." Mom nodded, cutting into her chicken. "Marcus is just naturally gifted. Some people have it, some don't." I was 9 years old. When Marcus was 16, Dad bought him a BMW 3 Series for his birthday. Midnight blue, leather interior, the works. The whole family went to the dealership to watch him get the keys. When I turned 16, Mom handed me a Metro card at breakfast. "You'll need this for school," she said. "The bus is very reliable." Marcus laughed from across the table. "Maybe when you prove you're responsible, Dad will consider it." I never got a car. When Marcus was 21, Dad invested $850,000 into his tech startup idea. Marcus had barely finished his business degree, but Dad called him a natural entrepreneur and the future of this family. When I was 21 and asked for $5,000 to invest in a certification program for supply chain management, Dad looked at me like I'd asked for a kidney. "Tegan, you need to be realistic about your capabilities," he said. "Not everyone is cut out for business. Maybe focus on finding a stable job with benefits." I worked 3 jobs that year. Paid for the certification myself. Finished top of my class. Nobody in my family came to the graduation. The worst part wasn't the money or the cars or the opportunities. It was the casual cruelty. The constant comparisons. The way they talked about me when I was right there in the room as if I couldn't hear them. At 23, Marcus's startup failed. He'd burned through Dad's $850,000 in 18 months. Dad called it a valuable learning experience, and immediately hired him as VP of Operations at Carson Manufacturing, our family's industrial equipment company. At 23, I was working as a logistics coordinator at a warehouse, making $43,000 a year. "At least you have a job," Mom said when I mentioned I was considering night school for my MBA. "Not everyone needs to be ambitious. Someone has to do the regular work." That was 7 years ago. What my family didn't know, what they'd never bothered to ask about, was what happened after those warehouse shifts ended. I didn't go home and watch Netflix. I didn't go out drinking with friends. I went to a studio apartment I'd rented under an LLC and I worked. That logistics coordinator job taught me something the MBA never would have. I could see inefficiencies everywhere. Supply chain bottlenecks, routing problems, inventory waste. And I was really good at fixing them. At 24, I started consulting on the side. Small stuff. A local restaurant needed help managing their food supply vendors. I charged $500 and saved them $3,200 a month. They told their friends. By 25, I had 12 clients. All small businesses. All paying between $800 and $2,000 a month for supply chain optimization. I was making more from consulting than my day job, but I kept the warehouse position. It was my cover. At 26, a mid-sized manufacturing company hired me to audit their entire operation. I found $1.7 million in annual waste. They paid me $95,000 for 3 months of work and asked if I wanted to join full-time. I said no. I had a better idea. I incorporated Meridian Supply Solutions. Just me working from that studio apartment, taking contracts from companies who needed their operations fixed. I was anonymous. They hired the company, never met me in person. Everything was remote consulting, detailed reports, implementation guides. The business grew fast. Really fast. At 27, Meridian pulled in $890,000 in revenue. I netted $510,000 after expenses. At 28, I hired my first employees. 2 logistics specialists, 1 data analyst. Revenue hit $2.1 million. At 29, we landed a contract with a Fortune 500 manufacturer. That single contract was worth $4.7 million over 2 years. I still lived in a modest apartment. Drove a 7-year-old Honda Civic. Wore clothes from Target. My family had no idea. At 30, Meridian Supply Solutions was valued at $67 million. We had 43 employees. We'd optimized supply chains for 18 major corporations. I own 100% of it. But I was just getting started. 6 months ago, something interesting crossed my desk. Carson Manufacturing, my family's company, the one Marcus ran as VP of Operations, the one Dad had built over 30 years, was struggling. Their supply chain was a disaster. Costs were ballooning. Delivery times were terrible. Major clients were threatening to leave. The board was looking for solutions. They'd heard about a consulting firm called Meridian Supply Solutions that specialized in exactly this kind of operational rescue. They reached out. I took the meeting. Video call, camera off. I sent my director of operations to handle the face-to-face presentations. I stayed in the background analyzing their data. Their problems were worse than I'd expected. Marcus had made decision after decision that prioritized short-term appearances over long-term sustainability. He'd chosen vendors because they took him to nice dinners, not because they were cost-effective. He'd ignored warnings from his operations team because he trusted his gut. The company was bleeding $340,000 a month in preventable waste. I could fix it in 6 weeks. But I had a different idea. Carson Manufacturing's board was desperate. The company was family-owned, but there were outside investors who held minority stakes. Dad owned 45%, Mom owned 12%, Marcus owned 8%. Various board members and early investors owned the remaining 35%. The board wanted to bring in outside management. Dad refused. "This is a family business," he said in the meeting I listened to remotely. "My son will turn it around." Marcus had been given 4 months to improve the numbers. He'd failed. Costs were up another 7%. That's when I made my move. Not as Tegan Carson. As Meridian Supply Solutions. I approached the minority shareholders privately. Offered to buy their stakes at a 22% premium over current valuation. They jumped at it. I bought 35% of Carson Manufacturing for $18.3 million. Then I approached my mother. Through a lawyer anonymously. Offered to buy her 12% stake for $6.8 million. A 25% premium. She'd never cared about the business anyway. She sold within a week. That gave me 47%. The final piece was harder. Dad owned 45%, Marcus owned 8%. Neither would sell to an anonymous buyer. But there was another option. Carson Manufacturing had a unique corporate structure. Voting shares versus non-voting shares. It was set up that way 20 years ago for tax reasons. Dad held all voting shares. Marcus had non-voting shares. The minority investors I'd bought from? Their shares were split. 60% voting, 40% non-voting. I did the math. With the shares I'd acquired, I owned 81% of the voting shares. I controlled the company. Nobody knew. The shares were held in a trust managed by a law firm in Delaware. My name appeared nowhere. I'd spent $25.1 million, but I'd done it carefully, quietly over 4 months. I waited for the perfect moment. The quarterly board meeting was scheduled for November 14th. A Tuesday. 2 p.m. Eastern. Marcus had prepared a presentation about his transformation plan for Carson Manufacturing. He'd been hyping it for weeks. In the family group chat, he'd sent photos of himself with consultants, with spreadsheets, with projection models. "This is going to revolutionize the company," he texted. Dad's vision, executed properly. Mom had responded with heart emojis. Dad had responded, "Proud of you, son." I'd responded, "That's great." Nobody asked what I thought about the actual business strategy. Nobody asked what I did for work anymore. They'd stopped asking years ago. I think they assumed I still worked in a warehouse. At Thanksgiving the year before, Uncle Richard had asked me how my little job was going. "It's fine," I'd said. "Still doing the shipping thing?" he'd asked. "Something like that." Marcus had laughed. Tegan's not really a career person, Uncle Richard. She's happy where she is. I'd smiled. I am happy. That was the truth. I was very happy. The day before the board meeting, I called Marcus. It was the first time we'd spoken directly in 3 months. Hey, I said. I saw you're presenting tomorrow. The quarterly meeting. Yeah, he said. I could hear the pride in his voice. Big day. Going to show the board what real leadership looks like. I'm sure you'll do great. Thanks. Hey, you should come by for dinner sometime. Mom keeps asking about you. Does she? Well, she mentions you sometimes. I'll think about it. Cool. Hey, I gotta run. Conference call with some potential investors. Good luck tomorrow, Marcus. Thanks, sis. He hung up. I looked at the documents on my desk. Transfer papers. Corporate governance filings. Legal briefs prepared by 3 different law firms. Tomorrow was going to be very interesting. I dialed into the board meeting at 1:55 p.m. Camera off, microphone muted. Just another anonymous observer. The system showed me as M. Solutions Observer. The conference room came into view. 12 board members around the table. Dad at one end looking older than I remembered. Gray at the temples now, deep lines around his eyes. He'd aged a lot in the past year. Marcus stood at the other end, a clicker in his hand, his presentation already loaded on the screen. He looked confident. He always looked confident. The meeting began with standard business. Financial reports. Operational updates. The numbers were bad. Revenue down 11% year-over-year. 3 major clients had left. Operating costs were up 23%. Marcus waited for his moment. Now, the board chairman said, we'll hear from Marcus Carson about his operational transformation plan. Marcus smiled. Thank you. What I'm about to present is going to secure this company's future for the next decade. He clicked to the first slide. Bold letters, Carson Manufacturing, a new vision. I took notes. Professional habit. Marcus walked through his plan. Consolidate vendors. Renegotiate contracts. Implement lean manufacturing principles he'd clearly just learned about. The buzzwords were impressive. The substance was thin. But the board nodded along. These were business people who wanted to believe. Who needed to believe. The key, Marcus said, clicking to a slide showing projected savings, is decisive leadership. Not committees. Not consultants. Not people who overthink every decision. A few board members glanced at each other. My father built this company on gut instinct and bold choices, Marcus continued. That's what I'm bringing back. No more analysis paralysis. No more hesitation. He clicked to the next slide. Estimated annual savings, $8.7 million. I almost laughed. The number was fiction. Pure fantasy based on assumptions that would never hold in reality. These savings, Marcus said, come from cutting unnecessary overhead. Streamlining decision-making. Eliminating redundancy. Eliminating what redundancy? One board member asked. Middle management bloat. Unnecessary consultants. People who don't add value. Can you be more specific? Marcus smiled. I can, but I want to address something first. He set down his clicker. There's been some concern about my qualifications. About whether I have the experience to lead this transformation. The room shifted. Several board members looked uncomfortable. I want to address that directly, Marcus said. I've spent 8 years in this company. I know every inch of our operations. I know our vendors, our clients, our processes. What I don't have is some fancy consulting background or a wall of certifications from people who've never actually run a business. He was on a roll now. The confident, dismissive Marcus I'd known my whole life. The board has discussed bringing in outside consultants, he continued. Specifically, there's been talk about this firm, Meridian Supply Solutions. Some of you have been very impressed with their pitch. He clicked to a new slide. It showed Meridian's logo and our tagline, Operational Excellence Through Data-Driven Solutions. My heart rate didn't change. I'd expected this. Here's what I know about Meridian, Marcus said. They're expensive. They're slow. They come in, analyze everything to death and present reports that look impressive but don't actually change anything. I've seen it a dozen times. The board chairman cleared his throat. Marcus, we've reviewed their proposal. It's quite comprehensive. I'm sure it is. But here's the thing. Marcus leaned forward on the table. Do we want to pay outsiders millions of dollars to tell us what we already know? Or do we want someone who actually cares about this company to fix it? Several board members nodded. My father didn't build Carson Manufacturing by hiring consultants, Marcus said. He built it by trusting his judgment, by taking risks, by being bold. That's what this company needs now. Not some anonymous firm that'll study us for 6 months and then leave. He clicked to his final slide, Carson Manufacturing, Family Leadership for a Strong Future. I'm asking this board, Marcus said, to trust me. Give me 6 months. If I don't deliver these numbers, I'll step down. But I know I can do this. This company is in my blood. Dad was smiling. Proud. The board chairman looked around the table. Any questions for Marcus? A woman I recognized as the CFO raised her hand. What about the supply chain issues? 3 vendors have threatened to terminate contracts because of payment delays. Marcus waved his hand. That's just posturing. They need us more than we need them. I'll handle it. And the client losses? Another board member asked. Clients leave sometimes, Marcus said. That's business. We'll replace them. With what pipeline? I have relationships. Trust me. The room was silent for a moment. Then Marcus said something I'd been waiting for. Look, I know some people in this company don't think I'm qualified. My own sister couldn't manage a coffee shop, and even she probably thinks she could do better. A few uncomfortable laughs. But the difference is, Marcus continued, I'm actually here. I'm doing the work. I'm not some armchair quarterback with opinions and no experience. My sister, she's a sweet person, but she's financially illiterate. She doesn't understand business. She never has. I unmuted my microphone. Interesting perspective, I said. The room froze. Who? Marcus looked around confused. Who said that? This is Solutions, I said. Observer line. This is a closed meeting, Marcus said. Board members only. The corporate lawyer, a man named Edmund Peters, cleared his throat. He looked uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. Actually, Edmund said, Solutions has observer rights as of 3 weeks ago. What? Marcus looked at his father. Dad shrugged. It's standard, Edmund said. New significant shareholders are granted observer status in the corporate bylaws. How significant? Marcus asked. Edmund didn't answer. How significant? Marcus repeated. That's not. We don't typically disclose. I'd like to know who I'm dealing with, Marcus said. His confident tone was cracking slightly. I decided to help. My name is Tegan Carson, I said. And I own 81% of the voting shares of this company. The room went dead silent. Marcus's face went from confident to confused to pale in about 3 seconds. He started. That's not possible. Edmund, I said, please distribute the documentation. The lawyer opened his briefcase with shaking hands. He pulled out a stack of folders and began passing them around the table. What is this? Dad grabbed one, flipping it open. Share transfer documentation, Edmund said quietly. All legally executed over the past 4 months. Meridian Supply Solutions established a trust specifically to acquire Carson Manufacturing shares. The beneficial owner of that trust is Miss Tegan Carson. Marcus grabbed a folder from the person next to him. His hands were shaking. You bought. He couldn't finish the sentence. I bought shares from the minority investors, I said calmly. I bought Mom's shares. And because of the voting structure you set up 20 years ago, Dad, I now control 81% of the voting rights. Dad's face had gone pale. Your mother sold? For $6.8 million, I said. A very fair price. This can't be legal, Marcus said. Edmund, this can't be legal. It's entirely legal, Edmund said. I've reviewed all the documentation. Multiple times. It's airtight. The CFO was staring at her folder, lips moving as she read. Finally, she looked up. Tegan Carson. You're the founder of Meridian Supply Solutions. Yes, I said. The Meridian Supply Solutions? The one that restructured Telford Industries. Yes. And Cascadian Manufacturing? Yes. And, she flipped through papers, you're currently valued at $67 million? $73 million as of last month's valuation, I said. We landed 2 new Fortune 500 contracts. The room was silent except for papers rustling as board members read through the documents. Marcus was staring at the table. His presentation, Carson Manufacturing, Family Leadership for a Strong Future, was still projected on the screen behind him. I don't understand, Dad said finally. His voice sounded small. You work in a warehouse. I did, I said. 7 years ago. I left that job 6 years ago when my consulting revenue exceeded $400,000 annually. But you never said. You never asked. Mom's voice came from Dad's phone. She was conferenced in remotely. Tegan, honey, why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? I asked. Silence. Marcus, I said, I reviewed your presentation. Would you like my professional analysis? He didn't respond. Didn't even look up. Your projected savings of $8.7 million are based on vendor consolidation that will actually increase costs by 12% based on current contract structures. Your lean manufacturing principles are 20 years outdated. And your timeline assumes zero implementation resistance, which is statistically impossible. I paused. You would bankrupt this company in 18 months. Dad found his voice. Now wait just a minute. I'm not finished, I said. Not rudely. Just factually. Edmund, please distribute the second set of documents. More folders. These were thicker. This is Meridian's actual proposal for Carson Manufacturing, I said. Based on a complete operational audit we conducted over the past 3 months. We identified $11.2 million in annual savings with 94% confidence based on comparable restructures. Implementation timeline is 14 weeks. Success metrics are defined and measurable. The CFO was speed reading. This is incredibly detailed. Page 43, I said. That's where we address the vendor payment delays Marcus mentioned. The issue isn't posturing. It's a cash flow problem created by accounts payable restructuring that happened 8 months ago. Marcus's initiative. Marcus's head snapped up. That was to improve efficiency. It added 17 days to payment processing and violated early payment discount terms worth $340,000 annually. Page 44. The CFO found the page. Her eyes widened. Oh my God. The client losses, I continued. Page 61. All 3 were direct results of delivery delays caused by the vendor consolidation Marcus initiated last year. We have the email chains. Board members were flipping through pages frantically. Everything Marcus proposed today, I said, would accelerate the problems he's already created. Everything in Meridian's proposal solves them. Edmund cleared his throat. Ms. Carson, as majority shareholder, you have the right to call for a vote on company leadership at any time. I know, I said. I'm calling that vote now. Wait, Marcus said. Wait, just wait. Motion to remove Marcus Carson as VP of Operations, I said. Effective immediately. Second, the CFO said instantly. All in favor? Edmund asked. 8 hands went up. Only Dad and 1 other board member, Dad's old college friend, kept their hands down. Motion passes, Edmund said quietly. Marcus's face crumbled. He looked at Dad. Dad. Motion to appoint Meridian Supply Solutions as operational consultants, I continued, with full implementation authority. Contract terms as outlined in the proposal. Duration 14 weeks with option to extend. Second, the CFO said again. All in favor? 9 hands this time. Only Dad abstained. Motion passes. The room was silent. Finally, I said, motion to restructure executive leadership. I'm recommending we hire a professional CEO with manufacturing experience. Dad remains as chairman emeritus with advisory capacity but no operational authority. Dad stood up. Tegan, please. All in favor? 10 hands went up. Even Dad's college friend. Motion passes, Edmund said. I took a breath. The board meeting is adjourned. Meridian's transition team will arrive tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Marcus, please prepare all operational documentation for transfer. Edmund will send you the details. I ended the call. My phone started ringing within 30 seconds. Dad. Then Marcus. Then Mom. Then Dad again. I didn't answer. Instead, I called my director of operations. The vote passed. All 3 motions. Send in the team tomorrow as planned. Congratulations, she said. You must feel amazing. Did I? I wasn't sure what I felt. I walked to my window. My apartment wasn't modest anymore. I'd moved 6 months ago. Penthouse in downtown Seattle. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Sound. I'd bought it with cash. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, please call me. Then another, I'm sorry. I never knew. Please. Then Dad, we need to talk. Family meeting. Tonight. Then Mom, honey, I'm so confused. Please explain this to us. I turned my phone face down. There was a knock at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I checked the video doorbell. A woman stood there. Professional attire, briefcase. I didn't recognize her. I opened the door. Miss Carson? I'm Jennifer Walsh. I'm a reporter with Forbes. I'm working on a story about emerging business leaders in operational consulting. Your name came up. Would you have time for an interview? I smiled. How did you get my address? I'm very good at my job. Fair enough. Give me your card, I said. I'll have my assistant reach out. He handed me a card. The story is about people who built empires quietly. Behind the scenes. I think you'd be perfect for it. I'll think about it. She nodded and left. I closed the door. My phone was ringing again. Dad. I answered this time. Tegan, he said. His voice was rough. Please. Come to the house. Let's talk about this. What would you like to talk about? You should have told us. We could have helped. We could have helped. I couldn't keep the edge out of my voice. When exactly would you have helped? When I was 9 and you told me I disappointed you. When I was 16 and Marcus got a BMW and I got a bus pass. When I was 21 and you called me unrealistic. That was just, you were trying to keep me in my place, I said. And it worked. I stayed invisible. I stayed quiet. I built everything alone because I knew you'd never believe in me anyway. That's not fair. Marcus called me financially illiterate in front of your board today. Silence. You smiled, Dad. I saw you smile. I didn't know. You never know. You never asked. In 7 years, did you ever once ask me what I did for work? What I was working on? If I needed anything? You thought I was nobody. A failure. Someone to feel sorry for. No, Dad said, but his voice was weak. I need to go, I said. Meridian's team starts implementation tomorrow. I have to prepare. Keegan, please. You're my daughter. Yes, I said. I am. Remember that next time you're deciding which child disappoints you. I hung up. The implementation went perfectly. Meridian's team identified even more savings than projected, $13.1 million annually. We renegotiated vendor contracts, restructured the supply chain, implemented new inventory systems, and trained the entire operations staff. Carson Manufacturing's quarterly numbers came out today. Revenue up 8%. Operating costs down 31%. 2 major clients had returned. 3 new clients had signed. The board sent me a formal thank you letter and a bonus check for $980,000. I donated the check to a scholarship fund for women in supply chain management. Marcus sent me an email last week. Tegan, I know sorry isn't enough. I've been thinking a lot about how I treated you. How we all treated you. You deserved better. You deserved support. Instead, we gave you nothing but criticism. I'm starting therapy. I'm trying to understand why I needed to tear you down to feel good about myself. I don't expect forgiveness. But I wanted you to know I see it now. I see what we did to you. And I'm ashamed. Marcus. I read it 3 times. I didn't respond. Mom called yesterday. Your father wants to have dinner. All of us. To talk. I'm busy, I said. Tegan, we're family. Family is supposed to support each other, I said. Not compete. Not compare. Not dismiss. We made mistakes. You made choices, I corrected. Choices to believe Marcus over me. To invest in him and not me. To celebrate his mediocrity and criticize my excellence. Those weren't mistakes. Those were decisions you made every single day for 20 years. What do you want from us? Mom asked. Her voice cracked. Nothing, I said. I don't want anything from you. I built a life without you. I have people who believe in me, who support me, who ask about my work and celebrate my success. I don't need you to suddenly start caring now that it's impressive. We always cared. No, he didn't. But it's okay. I learned to care about myself. I meant it. Today I'm in my office at Meridian. Corner office, 20th floor, view of the water. My team is 47 people now. We just signed a contract with a major aerospace manufacturer. $8.7 million over 3 years. My assistant knocked on my door. Miss Carson? Your 2 p.m. is here. The mentorship program candidates. Right. I'd started a program 3 months ago. Full scholarships for women from low-income backgrounds who wanted to study supply chain management. We accepted 8 this year. Today they were touring the office. Send them in, I said. 8 women walked in. Ages ranging from 19 to 34. Different backgrounds, different stories, but the same hunger I'd had at their age. Welcome to Meridian, I said. I'm Tegan Carson. And I want to tell you something important. You belong here. No matter what anyone has told you about your capabilities, your intelligence, your potential, you belong here. Success isn't about being the chosen one. It's about choosing yourself. They listened. I told them my story. Not all of it, but enough. When I finished, a woman in the back, maybe 25, wearing a Target blazer I recognized because I'd owned the same one, raised her hand. Did you ever forgive them? She asked. Your family. I thought about it. I forgave myself, I said finally, for believing them when they said I wasn't enough. That was the forgiveness that mattered. She nodded, understanding. After they left, I stood at my window looking out at the city. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Saw the Forbes article. You deserve it. I'm proud of you. Even if I have no right to say that. I almost deleted it. Instead I typed, thank you. Maybe someday we'd have a real conversation. Maybe someday I'd be ready to let them back into my life in some small way. But not today. Today I had a business to run. A team to lead. A scholarship program to expand. Today I was exactly who I'd built myself to be. And that was more than enough.